Hi everyone, welcome to Mummy Matters. Today I sit down with a very special mum who has grown 2 businesses while stepping foot into her own motherhood journey. She's a great example to exemplify the saying, anything is possible when you put your mind to it. The owner of Mint and Pink Events, it's Shivani Raval.
Thank you so much for being on this podcast. I know that we've been trying to kind of have this conversation since probably mid-June. But something's always come in the way. There's always been a spanner in the works. But we're finally here now. So if you want to just start off by introducing yourself and maybe telling us your journey, how you started, what made you start your own business.
Thanks for having me. Like I said to you, I feel a bit weird talking about the journey, but I think it's important that people who are kind of running their own businesses and things talk about this kind of stuff. And I know you feel the same. So, hi, I'm Shivani. I have 2 little girls. Aria is 3 years old and Isla is about to be 2. So they're quite young. And if you've met them, anyone who's met them they'll know that they're very demanding. And as you said, we've been trying to get this in the diary for so long, but one of them has always been ill. And that's just the story of life.
Yeah.
So I've got at the moment, I have 2 businesses. One is Mint and Pink Events and one is Brilliant Birthdays. Mint and Pink is event decor and Brilliant Birthdays is children's party entertainment. So that's kind of what I do now. How did it start? Well, actually, it's a bit of a weird start because these weren't the 2 businesses I started a long time ago. So my background is in fashion. So growing up, I always wanted to be a bridal wear designer. I studied fashion. I went into fashion. I was buying for the high streets. So I went down the fashion route. And then ended up at a fintech company and moved out of fashion, and that was a pretty big step. But I did that because at that point I decided that I was going to start my own bridal wear business because I'd studied it, I'd learned what I needed to. One of my sister-in-laws has a bridal boutique, so I knew that at some point I had to just do it.
Yeah.
And it's something I always wanted to do. So I started a bridal wear company, a design company where I was kind of doing bespoke bridal wear designs. And alongside that, I started a bridal makeup business because I had it in me that I could do that. So I started this joint company. It went really well for a couple of years, and then I got pregnant with Aria, and I suffered with HG, which is Hyperemesis Gravidarum, which is that insane sickness throughout the pregnancy. So from like having a really cool day job and a really cool business on the side, I went from doing that to literally not even being able to open my mouth and speak or get out of bed or any of these things. Like anyone who's had really bad morning sickness or hyperemesis itself will know what this feels like.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started feeling really guilty. And that's when the sort of mother and woman guilt and kind of life approach changed a little bit, because I couldn't go to work. I was signed off sick, instantly feeling guilty that I'd let the team down. What were people going to think of me? One of my colleagues at work was also pregnant, happily going in every day, doing her job, managing life, whereas I couldn't even get out of bed. So at that point, I was quite self-aware. I would try and push myself to go into work, and then I'd spend about 4 days back in bed being sick, because it's not doing anything takes it all out of you. So already in my head, I'm kind of like, okay, so if this is how the next 9 months are going to go, what if it doesn't go away? because there are some cases where after you've had the baby, you still have the sickness. So I started thinking about all of these things and how I was going to do life, or how we were going to do life, me and Hashiv. So anyway, so the whole pregnancy came and went. I was barely in work. In the back of my head, I'm worried about keeping my job. Just everything that comes with pregnancy illnesses. And I think a lot of women feel this, even if, I mean, my company was like amazing. My manager at the time, she's honestly one of the most inspiring people that I've ever met. And so it wasn't about the company, but it's that guilt that's already in, that's set into you already, that you've grown up seeing it as a woman's issue, whereas it's not. When I had Aria, went on maternity leave, everything is normal. And then I had Aria, and I was then like catapulted into parenthood, which is a massive change from not being a parent. And I started to think about how I wanted life to be, and hearing stories from friends who have kids, going to nursery, going to work, going to school, talking to everyone around me, and just sitting down with Hashiv, my husband, and talking about what we want our family life to look like. Aria's nursery is 8 to 5:30, which would mean when I went back to work, I would probably not get into the office until about 9:30. And this is pre-COVID. So whilst there was a lot of working from home, it wasn't the done thing. So thinking about how we would manage that, and do we want Aria to be in nursery 5 days a week, only see us in the morning, in the evening, and then at weekends? Like, we're just kind of talking about what we wanted to do. And I always knew I wanted to have a business because I'd done it so many times in the past. But I just didn't know what. So when I had Aria, I absolutely loved clothes. My background was still fashion. And so I started a baby and toddler clothing line, and it was called Mint and Pink Designs. I think I managed to get out maybe 1 or 2 lines, and it was really good. I think I did 2 seasons really well. And then Aria started growing up and needing more from me. I couldn't just put her down and she'd sit there and that's fine. She'd play with her toys. She needed more interaction. And that was the whole point of this, that, if I'm at home and I'm trying to run a business, to be able to be at home, I wanted to be at home and kind of teach her and play with her, and, all of these things that you want to do as a mum. So that got really, really difficult, because I was trying to design my third line, and it was impossible. I was kind of working all hours. Aria wasn't sleeping, getting ill, like all of the things that come with having a baby. Yeah. And so I kind of was just plateauing, where I was selling the stuff I already had, knowing that I needed to do the next line to be able to have something for when all of this stuff sold out, but never really managing to get there. So I was like, okay, this is not going to work. It's the reason I stopped bridal wear design. It's the reason I stopped makeup. I still absolutely love those things. I'm quite a creative person, so anything like that, I'm like, if someone else can do it, I can do it. Like, that's how I think.
Yeah.
And it's probably quite foolish of me to think that, but that's the personality that's got me to where I am. And the reason I stopped all of those things was because you are constantly at the mercy of someone else, where, like, for example, brides, you don't have a choice. They have their wedding. You have to get things done according to their timeline. You have to be up and ready in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
If my child is sick, what if?
Yeah.
Like, there were just too many variables, and I couldn't carry on doing that. I was at this point where I had done my 2 lines. I was trying to do a third. I couldn't do it. And so I started thinking about, again, back to the drawing board. What do I want to do? Like, I can't grow this in my current life state. And at this point, I was still due to return to work, but I still always wanted something else on the side that hopefully I could grow and turn into something else. Anyway, long story short, we went to one of my friend's son's birthday party and I saw this balloon arch on the wall. I was like, this looks really fun. And I didn't say anything. I just kept looking at it. And then we got home and I said to Harshiv, I was like, what if we add some sort of children's entertainment or activities or something into Mint and Pink? Yeah. It could be something that Ari is involved in, because I'd spent a majority of her sort of first 6 to 9 months going to classes every day with my NCT group, seeing all my friends with babies. So I was really, I think after having Ari, I'd changed as a person completely. I don't know, did you feel like this?
I think you're kind of hitting the nail on the head in a lot of aspects. Like
Sorry.
trying to juggle, trying to like almost spin loads of plates at the same time, you know, going in with this thinking that I can do it all, but then finding out that actually you can't do it all. You can do things if it's done in a certain way, but trying to do things all at the same time and have everyone at their 100%, you know, successful demand rate, it's not gonna happen.
No,
like something has to give every now and again.
Exactly.
So yeah, I completely agree that, you know, when you become a mom, I think you go in with all these expectations, like, yeah, it's going to be like this and it's going to be like this and it's going to be plain sailing, you know, baby will sleep, I'll get my job done.
Yeah,
it's about that way. Like,
yeah,
I completely relate to what you're saying.
Like growing up, when you think about what your life purpose was, mine was always to be a mum. And I know that sounds very like 50s, you know, I want to grow up and be a mum and that's my ultimate life purpose. Yeah. But I don't think people think about what that means so not just be a mum, be a good mum. Yeah. And when I had Aria, like, you know, you see loads of these reels and things like that about like people making jokes about how you parent before becoming a parent. And you say, you know, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to do this. I mean, until you've had your child, you have no idea what's gonna happen. Yeah. And for the first few months, Aria didn't sleep in her cot or her bed or her sleepy head or anything. I think we had a Moses basket that she just literally, I think I used for laundry. I think she ever slept in it. So she was just on me the whole time. And I'm like, okay, so we're going to spend 7 hours of the day like this. What else can I do? Like, I want to do something, but I don't know what I can do. So yeah, we went to this birthday party, came home, and I said to Harsh, I was like, do you think that, like, did you notice the balloons in that room? And this was in 2019 when balloon decoration was becoming really popular, but not as popular as it is now.
Yeah.
So people were starting to look at these things and think, oh, actually, balloons, like, I still sound ridiculous saying it, but balloons are becoming a luxury thing. And so I just decided that we were going to do it. And I had no experience on making balloons. I literally didn't know anything about it. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I just put the word out there that I was going to do it and hoped that at some point it would work. Yeah, so I think I started advertising the fact that we're doing this. I forced one of our friend's sisters to have some balloons for her birthday, even though I think it was a really small birthday. She didn't need balloons, but I made her have them. And that was our first job. And it's grown since then. COVID obviously had a massive impact because we couldn't go and do these things for the first few months. And then it was kind of a blessing in disguise because I got to learn a lot. I focused a lot on training, on the different services, on Aria, on how I was going to make this work, basically. Because I think so this was in September. I did my first balloon arch in September. And then by December, I was already booked through to next August.
That's amazing.
But then COVID. So COVID was, everything stopped, and we just had to take a step back and just go with it. And so when it started back up again, we started doing things. By this point, I was about 5 months pregnant, had hyperemesis again, but this time, bar the first 3 months that were really hard, but it was lockdown anyway, so I didn't have to go out and do things. I didn't have to do anything, and I think timing played such a big part as well. So the first 3 months I didn't do much on Mint and Pink. I was just trying to not be sick, and then as soon as we were starting to like be allowed to go and do these things, go and meet outside and things like that, clients were a bit more open to having someone in and making the balloons and then going away. And clients were really worried about COVID, and so was I. So we just pushed through, made it work. In fact, one of the biggest things that happened was that my husband was on gardening leave for a few months, and so he was looking after Aria like all day, every day. And I don't think it would have been possible for me to go out and do all these events and, really ramp up the profile of the company, talk to suppliers, talk to clients, talk to partners, and grow the company in the way if Harshib wasn't there to look after Aria, because if he had to go to work, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So like I said, I think timing has worked out really well for us, and we've been very lucky in that respect. And fast forward to February this year. So I think I've got a bit of a problem in that I can't just sit still on something that works. I'm sure you probably feel the same, having your own blog and stuff. You're always thinking about like, okay, cool, we're here, what's next?
Yeah.
And I think I'm always thinking about like 5 to 10 other things that will grow the company, or I need to do outside of the company to make sure that overall the company is successful, we get the family life we want. But it does mean that my brain is never just focused on one thing. So
I guess it never stops, right? Like it
doesn't.
Blogs are always working.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
And you'll hear this in a lot of podcasts. Like, people talk about how amazing it is to have your own business, and like the cool side of it, that, you can wake up when you want, you can go to sleep when you want. Actually, it's the complete opposite. When it is not your own company, it's a lot easier to focus, to go in. You've got set goals, you've got a company objective that someone else has set that you are helping to work towards. But I mean, no one's setting these for me. It's just, I've got to do it. Yeah. So
you can go into work and be like, okay, right, 5 o'clock, I'm done. I can switch off from that and I can focus on something else.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but even like when I go out, I'm still thinking, like, I'll see things and like I'll have like a spark moment, and they're like, oh, this would be good for this, and this would be good for this, and you're just thinking about, okay, how am I going to make it work? How am I going to make it grow? How am I going to balance everything? And somehow achieve that life that you kind of want for yourself, for your family, for your kids. So I completely agree with what you're saying.
So with Mint and Pink, I was at a stage where I was like, it's a lucky and great stage to be, and we were getting so many inquiries, but I'm one person, I couldn't go and fulfill them all, so I had to grow the team. And I started to talk to people who wanted to be involved, other partners, and eventually started building a team to kind of go and do these events alongside me, so that we were able to keep our clients, gain more clients, and just grow how I wanted the company to grow. And so one of the things that I had been thinking about for a while, ever since I started, well, to be honest, ever since before I started Mint and Pink, it was like having a messy play or a monkey music or something like that, like a baby class, because like I said, my whole identity had changed. I had become a mum, and that was literally it. Like, I think it's taken like a good few years for me to start getting some aspects of my old personality back since pre-pregnancy. which is not a bad thing. It's just I see life differently now, and there are different things that are important, and sometimes you don't have a choice. Like if my kid wakes up at 4:00, I am up at 4:00. There is nothing I can do about that. And that means that whole day, any plans I have, I'm going to be exhausted. So actually, how, it is the new normal.
Normal, yeah.
So the things that excited me, well, that used to excite me, like being able to go out and see my friends, it was more stuff like, oh, that was a really nice class. Like Aria really enjoyed herself. I didn't get to do any classes with Isla because she's a COVID baby. I wanted to do something like kids activity wise. And now that the event side of things was working really well, people were asking me if I knew anyone to come and do children's entertainment. So I think probably summer last year, I started thinking about the entertainment side of things, like properly, and how I was going to combine it. Do I need to go and start doing some training? I don't have any time to do training because I'm working full-time on Mint and Pink and the family. And so I started reaching out to entertainers to kind of come on board and form partnerships and things like that. And I'm too impatient. I need things done there and then. Like by this point, it had taken me 3.5 years to build Mint and Pink up to where it was. I just was not going to do that again. I'm sure like when you're thinking about doing things, you just want everything done there and then.
Yeah.
It's a massive flaw. I don't think it's a good personality trait to have, because it means that you're impatient just with everything as well. It's not just about work.
I think as a mother, you always want to kind of retain a little bit of that identity for yourself. And I think because motherhood is so life-changing, like you can't prepare yourself for it. I think it's just one of these things, once it comes and once it happens, you kind of just have to just pick yourself up and just run with it. And I think that's how my life has become anyway. You just like anything comes your way, you have to just kind of just do what you can, make the most of it and just keep going. And I think that's the biggest like sort of thing that I've learned from motherhood, of having 3. It's like you can't stop, you can't wait around, you can't, like you're saying, I'm impatient too. Like I like to do things, get somewhere. And if I don't, then I'm like, right, okay, what's next? We have to find a different route. Like this can't be the only route, let's find a different route. I think this identity thing is a big thing for a lot of moms, and a lot of people don't get it. Like there's been times where I've had conversations with people and people would be like, yeah, but now you're a mother now, like, and I'm like, so like it make no difference if I'm a mother or not. That's my role, but it's not who I am. It's part of who I am. I'm still Raki. I've still got stuff to do. I've still got hopes and dreams. Just because you become a mother, you can't just like, you don't just say, okay, that's it now, it's all about the kids, because it's not. Like, they need to see you just as much, like striving and wanting to be somewhere, and that will inspire them to have that same mentality. Like for example, with the podcast, I've been working on an advert to put out, right? And I'm not joking, my kids have been the one who have been helping me. Like even today, before the podcast, we were doing it and they were standing there, considering they're like nearly 9, 6 and nearly 3. They're literally standing there saying, no, you need to change this, you need to do this don't look good, that don't look good, change it like this, change it. And it just goes to show like how much of a drive they have to see exactly what I'm doing.
And like, what a great story that is. Like if it pushes them to want to do something outside the ordinary, they don't just grow up thinking that, oh, I'll go to school, I'll go to uni, I'll find a really good job and I'll have a salary. Like if they start opening their minds at this age, like how amazing could that be? Because there's so many people like us as well. So if that whole generation, the whole next generation start thinking like that, then like imagine the change that society and like the world, I know it sounds ridiculous, but like imagine the change.
That's what it's about, isn't it? It's about progression. And I think that's what it's all about. Like especially for the whole point of this podcast is to try and change that narrative, especially for us moms. Like I just feel like there's so much emphasis on moms having to compromise, like even when we like when you have your meetings, for example, you have to make sure it ties in with your kids' timetables, you're working around your home life, your husband, nothing should come in the way
No.
While you're trying to do that. But
yeah,
in actual fact, it should be like, you're trying to achieve this, there must be other people that could step in for you and take over that while you get on with your life as well. But I don't think that is always the case. Like I always find it's almost like we as mothers like live by this word called compromise, that we have to always see everything. I mean, like you said, we have to be at someone's mercy all the time. And I think that's a narrative that I think has been passed down from generations. I think it is a generational thing that, you know, but hopefully in the next generation, they're obviously seeing there's a lot more mums out there now that I know of that are striving to, you know, build themselves and educate themselves and be something in life other than, you know, just sitting at home or working for someone. You know, they're doing something other than that. And I think that obviously will help the next generation, especially the girls in the next generation, know that they can break that ceiling. They can, you know, they don't have to be just down here. They can actually strive for and be something.
Exactly.
You know.
And like something you just said there, having kids growing up, seeing different things, like, for example, my husband does pretty much all the housework. It's impossible for me to do it, and he knows that. And as a family, we have, you know, we have our roles, and it didn't start this way. When I didn't have my business, it, you know, was still hard because I was navigating like a new parent life. But I still had a bit more time to, you know, cook, clean, the normal things of running a household. Luckily, I've not felt the pressure of being solely responsible for it. Don't get me wrong, I feel the guilt all the time when there is, and it is all my stuff because I just don't have time to clear it up. There's just stuff everywhere, like the kids' toys are all around the place. My stuff, like the two businesses I have, come with a lot of like actual baggage. So I've taken over half of the house with all of my things, but it does spill into the rest of the house. And when you don't have the time to sort things out, I think that's one of the hardest things, is that you have all of these, I don't know another way to say it, but you have these wants and needs that you feel like you need to do in the house, or outside the house. Like, in fact, I was listening to a podcast by what's her name, Holly Tucker, and she's one of the founders of Not on the High Street, and she's got this really cool blog and website and company. It's called holly.co, and I literally think anyone who is a female trying to start any sort of business should read it, especially people who have families, because there's just loads of advice and things on there. And, you know, Holly Tucker, Not on the High Street, she's really successful. But she mentioned a book that was written in like the 1980s, and it talks about emotional labor. So this is basically all of the things that women have. It's like a hidden to-do list, like a mental to-do list that has always been a woman's role. A majority of the time it still is, but no one talks about it. So you've got this like massive load in your mind. I'm talking things like, we've got a birthday coming up, we need to get a present for that, make sure the card's done. Aria's clothes don't fit her, I need to order some new clothes. So it's not literal physical things like daily clearing up, daily cooking. It's just those things you can get support on. Things that are just down to you and have been down to you as a woman for decades. Like that's how we've been brought up, is, you know, there are certain things that are your responsibility. Like, I don't think I would ever, we've got loads of weddings coming up, I don't think I'd leave that to Hashiv, because it's not the done thing. B, you know, I'll sort that out. But what that means is, I think I've been saying this for maybe 2 months now, that I need to go through the girls' cupboards. I managed to do Isla's one day. Aria's is still sitting there, which means that there's about 5 to 10 massive vacuum packed bags of clothes that need to go in and out of the cupboard that have just been sitting there. So it's something that's there like prominently. I know I need to do it. I haven't got the time to do it, because what do? Do I reply to this really important customer? Do I take this interview? Do I cook dinner? Do I sort the clothes out? Like, what do I do? What's the most important? And housework always falls to the bottom because it can for me. I think I'm very lucky in that Harshib does, like, I don't even have to think about laundry, which is amazing. He just sorts that out. I don't have to think about it. And so like when he went away for the last weekend, he went away for a few days. I was like, oh, I can't remember the last time the bed sheets were changed. It's that kind of thing. So it like I'm actually very lucky. And he'll come and, you know, just sort the house out in like 3 or 4 hours because he can.
Yeah.
And what you were saying about having to compromise. So yes, I can do all of these things because he helps. But if he has something in the diary, I can't do them. So the priority is still work always comes first. Yeah. So, you know, if he has a work event, I have to make sure that I can't take anything else that evening.
Yeah.
So you do, like, I agree, you do have to always look at other people's diaries to be able to manage your own life, even if what you're doing is for the business or for the family or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not often, so it's fine, but it is one of those things that you are the lowest priority, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So how do you navigate, like when you've got something really important that needs to be done and there's a spanner in the works, something goes wrong? Is there something you do to kind of sort it out? Do you have a good support system? Do you rely on them? Like, how does it work?
So overall, I do have a great support system. When we were buying the company earlier this year, there was a lot of time that I needed to meet the old business owner, do a handover. I was about to buy and take over a new company and then merge it with my own.
Yeah.
So it was something I had to plan for in terms of time. The girls, they're only nursery 2.5 days. So I had to make sure that this was a physical, in-person kind of learning process and training. And it was not something that could just be handed off or like rescheduled, even though it was a couple of times. This was sort of, a few months of really hard in-person work. And so I had to basically ask my mum and my mother-in-law to just be around when I needed them. I would plan for nursery days, but my kids are always ill. So I also have to plan for the fact that they might not go to nursery that day. So a lot of the training was done over Zoom. We did have to reschedule the in-person ones, which meant that actually taking over the business took a little bit longer than it needed to, or that it would have done if I didn't have children and I was kind of responsible for my own time only. So yeah, I do have a great support system. But they've got their own appointments, they've got their own friends. They're my children. I can't just palm them off to their grandparents, because that's not why I'm doing this. We've chosen a life where Harshav at the moment, sees them maybe half an hour a day. I do as much as I can in that day to make sure that our future is an iteration of life that we want it to be. Yeah, I mean, look, when things happen, I just have to stop and pause. Like yesterday, Aria was so ill that, and this has never happened, she wouldn't actually physically get off me. So I had to hold her. I have this random like table stand that I put on the sofa. So I'm holding her in one hand and typing with one hand because I have full teams that I'm trying to manage. I've got employees. I'm responsible for so much more than what's happening at home, but home always comes first and I can't change that. So honestly, I don't know what the perfect solution is to that. I don't think there is one. I think it's something that changes day by day, judging on what's going on. And I just take a look at the whole situation and say, what can be put off to tomorrow? What can I do in the evening? What has to be done now? Who can do something instead of me today? And what are the things that are so crucial to that day that if I don't do them, I'm going to lose out? The company is going to lose out.
Yeah.
So it's just a prioritizing at that moment in time. But that recipe won't work the next day because everything's changing all the time.
Yeah. And I think that's the main thing. I think people are so fixed on a right way, if you like, whereas the right way is not, like, what's right for me won't be right for you. No. You have to do what's right for you. You have to go with what works for you. And I think that's like the biggest thing. Like, people go in with all these expectations thinking, oh yeah, you know, so-and-so's child sleeps through, so my child should be sleeping through, otherwise it's wrong. You know, like simple things like that, for example. But then if you take it with a pinch of salt and say, okay, it's good if they sleep all night, but if they don't, it's not the end of the world. Like, it doesn't make you a bad parent. You know, it just means that you're going to have to navigate your day-to-day differently, because you're probably going to be sleep deprived. You're probably going to have, you know, a child who probably wants more from you. But I think if people start, especially mothers, if they start thinking along them lines, as opposed to saying, oh, well, so-and-so is doing this, so I should be doing it like that, I think it would change so much of our day-to-day stresses.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of competition between mothers. Like, it's unsaid, but it's there. And it was there for me at the beginning as well. Not many of my friends had children at that point. So I kind of navigating doing it by myself, like not having people in my situation, like my own circle of friends and things like that, didn't quite understand what it was like. I think at that point it was quite lonely, because you're trying to do all this stuff by yourself, but also trying to be the person you were, trying to keep up with your social circles, your friends, etc., etc. And I think that's been one of the hardest things over the last like 4 or 5 years, running a business and running a business as a mum. Running a business itself is ridiculous. It's just so hard. I've got so much. I'm just in awe of people who actually do it and are successful and have the lives they want from it. As a mother as well, it is impossible. So trying to explain that to someone else who isn't a mother or hasn't got that experience around them is hard. So, you know, being able to say to my friends all the time, no, I can't come out, Ari's ill, or we've planned something months in advance, no, Ari's ill. I think it's a running joke actually in my NCT group that whenever they have get-togethers, I'm always never there. So yeah, it is what it is. And I've spent a lot of time over the last 4 or 5 years just taking a step back and working on myself so that none of this affects me anymore.
Priorities have changed.
Priorities changed. But I also think that like mums, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be certain people, to keep up with all of our friends, to keep up with all the family, to, you know, FaceTime 7 different people a day, to cook healthily all the time, make sure our kids
every day.
Make sure kids get all the nutrients they need. Not only eating healthy, are they eating a variety? Like, are they excited by their food? Just all of these different pressures that you go through, that now I'm kind of like, you know what? It doesn't matter. If my kids eat waffles and beans 2 days in a row, they'll survive, and they do. If my parents can't look after Aria, or, you know, Aria and Isla both don't want to be with anyone else, or anything that happens, it's like, what is the worst that is going to happen now?
Yeah. So when it comes to work, you're probably going to have to put in a lot of boundaries, right? Like healthy boundaries, like mommy's working, or, you know, like even on the other side, like if someone's trying to need something doing and you're busy at home with the kids or whatever, you're going to have to set certain boundaries. So how do you navigate through that, and what do you do if like people overstep the boundaries?
So I mean, the people who look after the kids are my in-laws and my mum, and I've made an office in the conservatory and like one of the other rooms. So I mean, I can literally show you, like, that there is the lounge. that's the main lounge, so they can see me here. I mean, I don't have boundaries. If you have any advice on how to set them, please let me know.
I'm learning from you. I don't feel like I can set boundaries either.
We've made it very clear that this is where mummy works. This is mummy's space. If they come in, it's very much like mummy's office, not just, oh, you can go in there and play with everything. And I mean, my business is balloons and children's party stuff. Like, it is literally a circus for them here. They absolutely love it. Like the other day, I've got, you know, like the baby sensory maracas.
Yeah.
I've got about 600 of those here.
Wow.
They're all tied up nicely in a bag. So I left the room one way and I came in, and the kids had managed to come in and open and just let everything spill out. And I was just like, how did this happen? You just tidy it up, send them back on their way. It's hard to have boundaries like that because they're doing you a favor. So I wouldn't ever say, why have you let them in here? You're supposed to be watching them. Like, it's a blessing that they can help. So I find it very difficult to have boundaries. I mean, that goes for like even work life and personal life. There's just no, I'm at home, like I'm not away from it. So it's very difficult to manage that situation. There is a blur. Of course there's going to be a blur because the kids are here.
Yeah. So do you find working from home is difficult?
Yes.
Do you think going like to another place to work outside of the home, do you think that would be easier? Because I hear this all the time that, oh, being at home is so great, you know, everyone's at home and you can get on what you want to do while, you know, people are doing whatever they need to do. But obviously I know from running a home business that isn't the case.
No.
There's a lot of grey area, and there's a lot of times where you have to kind of just deal with whatever's going on as well as doing what you're doing. How do you find that?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think there's a massive case of the grass is greener. When you're at home and you're trying to run a business and grow that business, there's a massive, well, for me, I found my biggest problem is focus. So I will be trying to do something, and then if the kids are at home, I'll hear that one of them is crying, one of them is screaming, mummy. If I wasn't here, I wouldn't hear that. It would have no effect on me. I could carry on with my emails and get on with it. But I do. So then my focus is gone. I don't know what I was doing. Yeah. Or for me, it's a focus thing. And, you know, you're walking around the house, even if you're just going to the toilet or you're going to get a drink, you see about 50 other things on the way that you should be doing or that haven't been done or need to be done. And then you're deciding, do I just do those or shall I go back to work? Like, it's that blur between personal and work that is very prevalent at home. But if you were out in an office, you would never turn around and be like, oh, I should probably be doing the laundry. Like, it wouldn't even occur to you. Yeah. So I think working at home is very hard. I know that people who have to go into the office every day would say the opposite because they physically have to get up and get dressed. Like, at least the perks of being at home is that, you know, I can literally just shove a top on, some leggings, and that's it. I'll go. Yeah. Make coffee and go.
Yeah.
So I think it is the grass is greener, but it is a very difficult situation when you're really trying to grow your business because you don't have the space to think at home.
So what would you say would be your like top 3 tips for any moms thinking of starting a business or moms that are already in business? I mean, what would you, because you've got 2 businesses now, right? So you're a pro now. So what would you kind of say is your top 3 like advice?
It's really weird. I want advice. I literally listen to podcasts all day and all night trying to find the advice. Start your business before having kids. No, I'm joking. But if that is a feasible option and you're thinking about it, doing it before children won't be easy, but it might be easier. So if you're thinking about it, just do it.
I guess it'd be easier to set the foundations to be able to build on
Yeah.
before baby gets here or something like that, right?
And it's real focus as well. Like I'm at the moment I'm trying to learn how to code, but that requires like deep concentration. I can't be interrupted by my 4 o'clock alarm saying the kids are home soon, go and cook. Like there are certain things that you need to just sit and do without being interrupted by breakfast, lunch, mid-morning, mid-afternoon snack, thinking about when they do come home. Like it's all of this other pressure that comes in that wouldn't be there if you weren't a parent. You have other pressures, but you're able to manage that time. Like it's your decision whether you follow that pressure or act on that thing. Whereas as a mum, you've got no choice. You have to feed your children. I mean, like I said, I'm looking for advice myself. I think there are a couple of things that I've been trying to do now that I have the business and I'm at this stage that would probably help me, that I just can't seem to get myself to do. Everyone else talks about it. One is having a routine. I don't know what that looks like. I have a semblance of a routine in that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are my work days because the kids are at nursery. But again, if one of them is ill for 2 days, that routine goes out the window. And then I'm more frustrated that I haven't been able to do that.
Yeah.
And then I resent the kids at that point. Like being ill, that's ridiculous. So if you can get into a routine that helps you and that you can follow, but then also give yourself a break if you don't stick to your routine, because what is routine as a mum? I mean, I'm sure you've felt like that as well. You've got a plan for the week and then it goes completely bonkers. And another thing is like exercise and eating well. And these are things that I hear are supposed to be really good for you, but I don't find the time personally. So I think maybe if I had got those things into my life before I started a business and then the business took over, it would be something that I habitually do.
Yeah.
But now trying to start a new habit whilst I'm in the crux of this massive like workload, it's hard. So just try and do those things beforehand, I guess. I don't know.
It's good that you've given a realistic kind of approach to the whole thing. Because I think, like you said, you hear all these things, but actually putting it into practice is a completely different ball game. Yeah. Like even with the routines, you're talking about routines. I've been trying for years to try and get into some kind of routine, and it just doesn't happen. My routine starts and finishes according to what's happening in the day. Like I have a list, and that list just gets longer and longer and longer, and eventually I get bits done, but it's never in the order that I want to do it, and it's never in the way that I want to do it. I always think, oh yeah, by the time it hits 11 o'clock, I'll have this done, and it just doesn't happen. And I think the quicker we can understand that that list isn't a be all and end all, like it's there just to help us navigate through the day. It's not there as, okay, this is exactly, it has to be done. If we don't put that pressure on ourselves, I think that's the biggest kind of thing I think that we can take away from it.
Yeah.
But then saying that, we can think like that, but then I guess the people around us have to also think like that, because otherwise that just doesn't help the whole dynamics of everything, right?
Yeah.
Like you already feel bad at the fact you can't finish your list, but at the same time you've got people there telling you've not finished your list yet. Like it's like the worst thing, isn't it?
But it's like a never ending list as well. Like I think it's really important for people to be forgiving of themselves, because you've got a to-do list, you might not get it done, but even if you do get things done, I don't know if this is the same with you, you tick one thing off, but because you've done that, you've got 15 other things you need to do. Like on the business side, if I've got my own, business goals that every week I have to achieve, but achieving them means there's 10 other steps attached to that. And it's the same in both sides. Like I emptied Isla's cupboard. I now need to empty Aria's cupboard, put those things in the loft, get the bigger stuff out of the loft, put it in their cupboards, give everything away to charity. And all that's happened is I took that one thing off the list, but those 15 other things are still there waiting.
Yeah.
So it's
I don't know if this happens with you as well. Like you'll start doing something, but then you'll see something else, so you'll start doing that. Then that first thing you started off with kind of just gets left, and then
all the time
you end up just doing like so many other things, and then you'll be like, all right, the first thing I was supposed to just didn't get done. Like it just
exactly.
That's how my kind of day navigates through.
I find that crossover between when I'm doing something for the house and for the family, and then I see something that comes in from work and I'm like, oh, I should probably go and do that. Or I'm online doing, I don't know, doing the Asda shop, and then something pops up and I'm like, oh, and then 20 minutes later, what was I doing? I can't remember what I was doing. But that's A, mum life, B, working mum life, and also trying to run your own business. It's just, everything is like it's a big thing of like, it's a big circle of loads and loads and loads of different aspects. And, you know, you grow at the pace you can. So, which is not great for someone as impatient as me.
But you're doing well. So I guess that's
Thank you.
That's very commendable that amidst all this kind of chaos, you're still kind of growing and, you know, fulfilling your purpose almost.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
But no, good on you for actually trying. I think a lot of people would give up. I think I've seen it, that, you know, people, they start something, you know, they're having to compromise, they're having to work around people. Eventually they lose that spark. They don't want to be doing so much, and then they'll be like, just forget it, why am I doing it? I get told it now, like, how are you handling so much? Like, you've got 3 kids, you've got a baking business, you know, you're doing podcasting. Like, when do you find the time to do other things? But it's like, if you're doing what you enjoy, I'd rather be doing this than work at a 9-to-5 dead-end job that I don't enjoy. At least this way, it's manic most of the time, and you're constantly on the go. But I don't think I'd have it any other way. I think, you know, at least this way, I know I'm building almost something that the kids could fall back on if they want to, or
exactly,
you know, I'm trying to build that life. It's going to be hard. Nothing comes easy, right? That's worth it, right?
Exactly.
So it will be hard, but hopefully in a few years down the line we'll reap the benefits of all the hard work. And I think that's that for me is my driving force. Like, that's all I'm looking at. Like, okay, it's hard, but it's fine, just keep going. One day, eventually, hopefully it'll pay off. But till then, you just gotta grind, right?
You have to, no one else can do it for you. And like you said, you can spend the time building someone else's business, or you can focus on your own. And now that I'm a few years into it, there's really no going back. You know, there were times where it was like, I would say probably the hardest times is when I just had Isla and Mint and Pink was growing. I was still thinking about this next thing, but I had a newborn. And so I think like those few months, I was like, I can't do this. I'm going to go back to work. I'm going to find a job. Like, this is impossible. No one can do this. And honestly, at the time, that's all I was thinking. And then Harshiv was, you know, every time I'd say that, he'd be like, it's not what we want. It's not what we've chosen to do. It's hard now. It does get easier. I don't think it gets easier. I just think you manage it better. I think you're so used to it, and you come up with new creative ways to deal with things, and so it feels easier. But I think I'm not going back. This is what we do, and you know, luckily we're growing, and hopefully it stays that way.
Amazing. So thank you so much for taking part and supporting our podcast. I'm sure a lot of moms will relate, because I think we're all in the same boat. We don't talk about it, about this invisible load that you touched on, and you know, being able to navigate day to day. But I think a lot of moms go through it, and I think the more we talk about it, the more we can kind of help each other, support each other, hopefully be able to find a way to actually do this without losing ourselves in it. But like I said, you know, nearly 2 months of trying to get this conversation to happen.
I know.
I'm glad it's happened, and I'm glad I've been able to connect with you, and
me too.
Just get your story out there, really.
Thank you so
much.
Thank you. And I think it's like you said, I think it's really important that we all stick together, and hopefully, you know, one person has some advice for someone else that could be life-changing. So yeah, definitely keep going and keep getting the word out on really important things.